You're listening to the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. We're coming back to you once again. And, folks, we're going to get right on into it. We got Sean Payton, conduct detrimental. Did he intentionally try to lose games? And, folks, let me let you in on where I'm coming from. I'm Money Mike. What's my background? I had an opportunity to cover Aaron Rodgers, NFL Super Bowl MVP, all the way up to the NFC Championship game in Soldier Field, being there for the press conference, post-game, and also being locker room coverage. Second step, I work for SAC Cultural Hub, Plachette Robertson out of Sacramento, California, covering NFL credentialed for the San Francisco 49ers, NFL credentialed for the Oakland Raiders, and also NBA credentialed for the Sacramento Kings. So my background, I've been doing this, a little over 15 years, and grew up in San Francisco, California. So let's get back to the story. It's not about me, it's about Sean Payton. It came out that they came to Russell Wilson week 8 and asked him to waive an injury clauses in contract or he would be benched. If he didn't waive the injury clause in his contract, he would be benched. Now, as you know, Money Mike, as you looked at the previous on Sean Payton, I had a high concern regarding his play calling and how he was calling the plays, and it didn't make any sense. And now that I've found out in week 8, that he actually went to Russ and said, hey, we need you to get rid of your guaranteed contract or we're going to bench you. So this whole scenario, and folks, I'm talking to you straight here. I'm going to come uncut again on this situation. If they went to him in week 8, and I identified that there's something wrong with the play calling, my question is, are we intentionally trying to lose games as we go forward? You came through the doors, and for the Waltons Penner family that have just recently purchased the Denver Broncos, this is not a good situation, and this one, it seems like there's one lie to the next slide, to the next slide, to the next slide. And to see Sean Payton take the podium and say, I'm handling football, I'm a little concerned. And because I'm walking back through this, and I identified the play calling was no good. After the play calling was no good, I started telling you they're pointing fingers and excuses. Then we have the sideline rant. You do the sideline rant, and all of a sudden, the next day, you come out and say you're going to bench Russell Wilson. And so now I also went a step further, and this is where it really got really interesting for me, is when I went a step further, and I couldn't understand for the life of me why he wasn't challenging calls. And these are calls that look, the balls crossed the goal line. He didn't challenge any of those calls. And after not challenging those calls, he has a sideline rant with Russell Wilson. Folks, there's something wrong here. And like I said, I'm not here to sugarcoat. I'm not here to make up a conspiracy. I've done this long enough. I can spot a problem. And I'll tell you, throughout my career, I've had an opportunity to see Peter King, who's one of the best in the business, Joe Glazier, I've Sam Weish, had an opportunity to have a conversation with Bill Bellick, just straightforward people. And I also had an opportunity to work with Lowell Kuhn and the San Francisco 49ers, and that opportunity, Larry Fitzgerald, to his father, great man out of Minnesota. I had an opportunity to have a long conversation with him. My background with the Raiders is I had an opportunity to spend 4 hours with Cliff Branch, probably rest in peace, prior to his legacy, to communicate about getting his legacy and moving in the Hall of Fame. So I say all this to tell you, This NFL, in my history in NFL, the integrity of the NFL, there's a problem here. This is about as bad as it can get. And folks, let me tell you something here. I'm going to dig a story and I'm going to tell it to you the way it needs to be. Sean Payton went to the New Orleans Saints. And let me tell you, there is no Drew Brees that he's going to pull a rabbit out of his hat. He's going to throw for 55, 65, 75,000 yards. Folks, that's not going to happen. But here's the deal of what happened, okay, and we're looking back. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about Bountygate, and we're going to mention Bountygate. Okay, so this is an individual that was suspended from the NFL for a year. Okay, because you were bountying players. Players were getting injured, and you were placing money on it. So here's where I'm trying to go with that so you can understand. If you're doing that, what else would you do? And now we're here today. Now, I'm only explaining all this to you folks, and I want you to understand, because Sean Payton left his contract in New Orleans. He left his contract in New Orleans. He didn't finish out the contract. He walked away from the job. So when he came and took, and this is how this story is unraveling here, he came to the Broncos. They had to give up compensation to get Sean Payton. Now, on top of that, you come in, and the Broncos have made a trade where they're giving up even more compensation. And now you have a franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson that you've kind of fabricated a lie here. I mean, this doesn't even make sense. You went in there, you're benching somebody, and it's not because of his playing on the field. And here's where I am at. Here's where Money Mike sits on this. If you're benching a quarterback, the NFL, Roger Goodell, promised us the integrity of the game. And if you're doing this intentionally and it has nothing to do with performance, folks, this has nothing to do with coaching. Absolutely nothing to do with coaching. And now you have the fan that the Broncos organization has committed to winning and doing everything they can to win football games. And you have someone, head coach Sean Payton, CEO, walk through the door and he has no intention of winning football games. That's why he didn't challenge the calls on the goal line. Even the announcers were sitting there. And folks, my apologies, I get excited. Even the announcers were sitting there. For the life of me, they cannot understand why Sean Payton wasn't challenging the calls. And after you don't challenge the calls, you go have a sideline rant. Then after you have the sideline rant, you go up and you say, okay, I'm going to bench Russell Wilson. Folks, this is 8 weeks later. They went to him on week 8. And here these players have sacrificed themselves. They got online. They got a chance to get in the playoffs. And here's where I'm going. The play calling to me, it didn't look right. And folks, here's what I'm going to guarantee you. In my history of covering this league, here's where I can tell you, and Lowell Kuhn taught me this. If there's not a story, you go find it. And if they're telling you something's not true, then you dig deeper and don't accept it. And here's what happens. If you went into this not to win football games, you were questioning the integrity of the NFL. You were questioning the integrity of the Broncos organization. And now, after a sideline rant, you go to bench a player but not performance? And now, here's what you say you're going to do. You're going to get out of there, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to take Jarrett Stidham, and you're going to put him in. And, folks, you have to understand the NFL integrity, the brand, the shield. Folks, Roger Goodell promised us when the gambling and the betting started in the NFL, we'd have integrity. This is not integrity. There are people placing bets on these games. There are fans who have bought season tickets on the premise that the Walton Penner family, who has just bought the organization, would put the best team they have on the field. And you have walked in there and you have completely given us a complete lie. And then you take the podium now and say, I'm handling football. Here's what happens when you do a situation like this, and this one's not going to be good. I can tell you now, by the time they dig back and they peel back the onion, okay, you're dealing with the integrity of the NFL. You have already been suspended from the NFL for Bountygate for an entire year. This is not someone who has not been through there. And when you're talking about going after the safety of players and condoning the behavior to put up money to actually injure a player. And I'm going to talk about conduct detrimental. That's conduct detrimental, man. We play, the players play this game for the love of the game. No one's out there trying to intentionally injure someone. These people have families. And these people, when you go to a player and you ask him to waive a guaranteed contract, and you're guaranteed if you get injured, and you're going to bench him if you don't, and we're talking about Russell Wilson. I'm going to talk to you. That's not Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's in a category of Senator Russell Wilson, Congressman Russell Wilson. You're asking a player to waive a clause that you know this league is 100% injury rate. Folks, I'm talking about the integrity of the NFL. And if other players are going to come in and play for you with them knowing that you're going to come to them and ask them to waive their injury guarantee, there's something wrong here. There is this whole thing, I'm going to tell you right now, it stinks. Okay, it's got smoke coming out of the back ears of it. There's nothing good about it. And when you challenge the integrity of the NFL game, because that just has what happened, and folks, I'm not here to sugarcoat it. I'm telling you, if I notice the play calling, and when I talk about the play calling, I want you to watch the play calling that's going to come out of Sean Payton, okay, this next game. And I guarantee you this, it won't be the same play calling. I couldn't understand why you're running first, second down. Why are you throwing this? What are you doing? I'm spotting it. So I know there's a problem sitting there, and I know now what it's all about. When you go to a player and ask him to waive the quarterback his injury guarantee, which means if he gets hurt, you can cut him. You are the one who's calling plays for the person that you have asked to waive, or you will be benched. So if I can't get you to waive it, I'm going to go ahead and give you the plays that are going to slow down your performance. And folks, I'm giving you the smoke and the fire tonight. This is a bizarre situation. Not only am I the play caller, I'm also the head coach, and I'm watching players get to the goal line where everyone can clearly see that play needs to be challenged, and you're refusing to challenge it. And after you don't challenge the play, you go over to the sideline and you do a human rant rage on Russell Wilson. And then after you do a rant rage on Russell Wilson, you go to the podium and you say, I don't want to talk about it. But then the following day, Russell Wilson comes back behind you and says, hey, after we beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and they hadn't beaten the Kansas City Chiefs in a long time, they come to him. So that tells me if you're willing to bench Russell Wilson, who is on a trajectory of being a Hall of Fame player, then you're dealing with the integrity of the game, because the fans expect Russell Wilson to play. There's people all over the world, whether they're in pools, Super Bowl pools, or whatever, the integrity, they expect a player to play unless he's not healthy. And you are creating this scenario. This one here is going to get worse and worse and worse. And I am truly apologize to the NFL fans. The integrity of the NFL, of that shield, is the most. And folks, this doesn't look right. It doesn't smell right. And there's one line to the next slide to the next slide. Okay, this is the way this situation has come about. And there's history. Like I said, there's Bountygate. You get suspended as a coach from the NFL for an entire year. You leave the New England organization. You quit the job in the middle of the contract. You go to another organization, and now you're bleeding them down for draft picks they give up to get you. They've given up draft picks. They've mortgaged the farm. Folks, there would have been a better way to go about getting an NFL coach that did not cost the Broncos organization this much. And like I said, I only come to give you the truth. I'll tell you, I said I'll do you the secret truth. I'll take you behind the scenes, or I'll go uncut. This one is uncut. It stinks. There's people all across the media that are talking about it. And this is not going to end well for the Broncos organization. And when I say it's not going to end well, if I'm seeing and hearing, and if it's correct, there's going to be a huge penalty that's going to come down against the Broncos organization. You cannot take the field and intentionally try to lose games. And I'll tell you, you watch the play calling this week, and you watch how it's completely different. You watch every single play is completely different. It's like all of a sudden we got a brand new playbook. I've seen this dog and pony show before, and it's my job to bring it to the fans and bring it to you uncut in the truth. And again, you're listening to the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. You do what you do. We do what we do. And at some point in time, we're going to bring you around some good barbecue. And we're looking forward to a great 2024. And stay tuned, because there may be more coming down the pike. I can tell you this. In the NFL of my days, I've seen a lot of things. But if you get a gate behind it, if there's something going on, and I'll tell you, birds of a feather flock together, and you'll see some things. But I've never seen this before. I have never seen a Super Bowl, 2-time appearance, Super Bowl, 9-time Pro Bowler, getting benched because he did not waive an injury clause. And you actually asked him to do that after a victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. You can't find it anywhere else. This is, again, but you know me now, and we're going to give you the truth, whether it's wants to be heard, doesn't want to be heard, because at the end of the day, we live our life by kingdom principles. We understand all things are possible to those who believe. And when you deal with these young men, or you deal with these individuals, and if they're not doing things according, then it's our job to make sure and ask the tough question. So my tough question to the NFL, is there an integrity issue that happened with Sean Payton and his series of actions to get to the stage where he's deciding, I'm going with Jarrett Stidham? And is the NFL a proponent of waiving injury clauses that guarantee players' contract? Because if they're allowing that, as I told you before, there will be nobody that will come play for the Denver Broncos. Because nobody's going to sit there in the middle of their contract and have an NFL coach come to them and say, I'm going to bench you unless you waive the injury clause. Okay, this is absolutely ridiculous. But it really happens. So you stay tuned. We're going to stick with this story. We'll follow up until we get to the end. And you enjoy. Happy New Year. It's just here. It's here now. And we enjoy each and every moment with you. You're listening to the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast.